And we're back with this month's Power Rankings. If you're new to this series, every single month we give you guys our top 30 here in the NBA. Now, these are based off of a couple of things. What have you done all season, and how have you looked lately? That's a combination of both, but let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it. Now, I did forget to mention at the top of the show, it's your boy's birthday. So if you enjoyed today's video, all I ask for as a birthday wish is that you consider subscribing to the channel, the big red button down below, as we're closing in on 18,000 of you beautiful people. So in order to get there, I need your help. So if you enjoy, that's all I'm asking for. But let's get into it here at going into March here. Of course, it's now March 3rd at the recording of this video. Here is the bottom five, whether by injuries or youth. This has not been the season for these teams, as some of these teams are going after Cooper Flag, and some of these teams are trying to figure out what to do with their star players going into next season. But the Wizards, Hornets, and Jazz at the bottom of the list. No reason to really move them up or down. The Pelicans drop a spot here. Zion came back, but him and Trey Murphy, they've kind of been just a two-man band, and everybody else has been very inconsistent around them. The reason why they're not really winning any games and why they're at the bottom of the Western Conference. The Philadelphia 76ers, they are at 26. They dropped 3 more spots compared to last month's rankings. Joel Embiid's out for the season. Has he played his last game in the Sixer uniform? That is a big question. They're going to have to answer this offseason. But Maxey, when he's played this year, has been great outside of one of those games where he had like 2 shot attempts a couple months back. But this season, he's been great this year. Now, you have a lot of inconsistencies with Paul George. What's his future if you decide to move off of Embiid? But for this video today, we're focusing on this year, where they currently sit, and where they currently sit is far away from even the play-in. So that's why they're here in the bottom 5. It's a shame that this season went the way it did. I thought they could finally get over the hump this year and just win a playoff series, which Joel Embiid is trying to get that monkey off his back. Obviously, that has not been the way and how the season has gone. That's not been the fate. That's the word I'm looking for the Brotherly City team. On to the next 5 teams here in the bottom 10. Now, I do want to say this. View these teams in tiers of 5. So if you want to have the Raptors above the Nets or vice versa, just know that these teams on your screen are interchangeable depending on what you believe. But here at the bottom of the list with the Raptors, Nets, and Bulls, all 3 teams have had promising games and stretches from some of their younger players. And this is a year where, sure, the win column is not all the way there, but gaining confidence going into next year, I think is going to be pivotal for these teams going forward. Now, the Nets and the Bulls are in a bit of a race for that 10th spot in the East for the play-in tournament. I do think the Bulls will come away with it, probably barely. But hey, I think shout out to the Bulls, though. Since losing Zach LaVine, you got a lot of promising games and stretches from this team where it seems like every night they're putting up 120 points, which is great. But on the flip side, they're giving up almost 130 seemingly. So they're scoring, but they're not stopping anybody. But I will say getting experience for guys like Montes Buzelis for next year is huge. And whether the question now, I'll say this, the question now for the Bulls, who is that guy? Who is that 1A? Are you going to get Cooper Flag? If not, what direction do we go with this young core? Because of the right now, you just really can't escape the play-in. At 21 and 22, these teams can be flipped like I mentioned, but the Suns at 21, despite having 150 million in their big 3, despite having generational scores, they cannot win games. They tried blaming it on Monty Williams. They shipped him out of town. They tried blaming it on Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton before that. They shipped them out of town. And now with Mike Budenholzer, you still aren't winning games. So now the question is, who is the next scapegoat? Is it Bradley Beal, a guy that you are now having come off the bench? Is he the scapegoat for why this team with this much talent is not winning and being a top 5 seed in the Western Conference? I don't know, but there's gonna be a lot of interesting narratives to close out the season for Phoenix. At the end of the day, though, you're just losing against good teams, bad teams, middling teams, at home, on the road. They just can't win 2 or 3 games in a row, it seems like, there in Phoenix, despite having Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, 2 Olympic gold medalists, I might add. At 22 is the Spurs. Look, the season is what it is at this point because you lost you're again, maybe the greatest coach of all time, but also your best player on your roster, a generational star in Victor Wembanyama. So this season, it is what it is. I do want to say, great pickup there with De'Aaron Fox. You took a shot. You were trying to make a push at the play-in, and I thought you were going to get there. But going forward, the biggest focus for Spurs fans should be developing young players, getting them experience, of course, but the health of, again, Greg Popovich and Victor Wembanyama, hopefully speedy recoveries for both, and hopefully both are ready for training camp going into next season. Hopefully it's not any longer than that. So, speedy recovery for the both of them, as it sucks to see any injuries, period, but especially the two guys that are that pivotal for an organization. It hurts Spurs fans. So hopefully, again, those guys can come back quicker than we all can imagine here for the San Antonio Spurs. Now, the next 5 year, again, they're right below, again, the top half of the teams in the league. We have Sacramento at 16, Miami as they continue to climb despite no Jimmy Butler at 17, Magic stay at 18 because they just can't score the basketball and they're losing games that they shouldn't be losing. 19 is the Hawks, and 20 is the Blazers, who last night were up by, 20 points on my Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Cavs, of course, came back and won the game. But for a guy like Denny to have this quiet season where he's led this team to win 15 of the last 20 games, great stretch there, Chauncey Billups. You're proving to me you're a decent head coach. But Denny's having a breakout, and it's quiet because it's Portland, and nobody wants to talk about a team that might not even make the play-in. But Denny had 30, 10, and 10 last night. Did you hear about it? I didn't. I only heard about it because I watched the game. Denny's an incredible player, doesn't get the flowers that he deserves, the credibility that he deserves, but he is going to be their 1A going forward, and you're going to pair him with Anthony Simons, who's a great one-on-one ISO scorer, and if you could round out this roster, which they're doing this season, I like Portland's future, man. And again, they've won 15 of the last 20. They could even be higher on this list. The Hawks, they are what they are. They're going to be a playing team, and they're probably going to lose, not making it to the playoffs. But who knows? They might be able to beat Orlando because Orlando can't score 100 points in a game. This is a team that at one point in time I had in my top 10 because I said they were a top 3 defense despite not having Paolo Banchero. Paolo came back and the defense is there, but the offense has gotten worse, which we didn't think was possible. And they're just not an above average team at this point because that offense is that horrendous. Now it's 16 and 17. Miami, look, you're winning games. You shouldn't be winning because you don't have technically the superstar lead player. But Spo is an amazing coach. Their guys are always making the effort plays. It's typical Miami Heat culture basketball. And that's why that they are 17. I do think that they will be in the play-in. I think they'll win the first round game, and they will be facing the Boston Celtics in the first round for what seems like the 100th year in a row. Sacramento at 16, they got the talent. They just can't get this consistent stretch of great wins. Now, 2 months ago, they had a great month there in February, or in January, excuse me, going into February. But this past month, it was a bit, coming back down to reality. But I will say that with the talent they have offensively, they have a chance to beat any team on any given night. So getting into the play-in is the priority right now for Sacramento. Moving into the top 15 teams in the league here, and we'll speed up a little bit because a lot of these are self-explanatory. The Clippers at 11, should they be lower? Maybe. I just want to see Kawhi get fully back into the stretch of things. I know he's slowly been winding up, and he has been playing 30 minutes here and there, but Kawhi Leonard just doesn't look like himself yet here on the court. And that comes with, hey, all the time that he had off, you got to give him some time to get back to the Kawhi Leonard that we all knew and loved. Now, I don't think he has the potential to be the 2019 Kawhi anymore, but still a top 15 level player. It's definitely in the cards for a guy like Kawhi Leonard when he gets fully back into his groove. I'll say that. So until then, that's why I still have the Clippers at number 11. They have the talent. They just can't beat the top-end teams here in the Western Conference. I still think that they're a lot better than these teams like the Detroit all the way down to Minnesota. So that's why, again, they're above. But Detroit at 12, one of the hottest teams in basketball over the last month, and Cade Cunningham is coming into superstardom for this team. So despite losing Jaden Ivey, this offense has actually looked better since Ivey went down, and a large part of that is because Cade Cunningham and Malik Beasley are just shooting the lights out and putting up crazy numbers offensively almost every single night. Now, Jalen Duren, of course, he's been better after the rough start to the season. So Jalen Duren, like to see his improvement as well. JB Bickerstaff is a great coach for rebuilding teams. We've been over this. We've talked about it. The problem that I'm going to, foresee happening with this Detroit team is when it comes down to the playoffs. When every decision is magnified, when JB has to make those tough rotational decisions, when a player's in foul trouble, Those are the questions and the decisions that JB Bickerstaff struggled with in Cleveland. I'm a Cavs fan. He's a great for rebuilding a team and setting a culture in a city, but he is not great at, I guess, coaching in those big time games. When the pressure is the highest in those playoff games, that's where he struggled in Cleveland every single year. So for Detroit, I worry about that, but maybe he's learned from his mistakes, and I hope that he has because I like JB as a coach. Again, I hope that he can learn from his mistakes in the past, and this team can maybe shock a team in the first round at the bare minimum, push them to 6 or 7 games. Detroit has that potential. 13 is the Mavs. You want to see them get healthy. Outside of that, they've been fighting as best as they can without a top 10, 15 level player in Anthony Davis. The Pacers, I don't know. I was on that train last year. I think I'm officially off it now. This is a team that is fun, and when they're going, when they're hot, when they're making their shots, they're a fun team to watch. But there's just stretches of games where they just are just so stagnant and they just miss everything. Like I understand that if you had a star player that had an off night occasionally, and for example, like the Cavs, let's just take them for example. If Donovan Mitchell has an off night offensively for the Cavaliers, we still have a chance to win the game because we got other guys that step up to the plate, like Garland, like Mobley. Heck, I mean, apparently DeAndre Hunter, who just had 32 points last night. But for the Pacers, if Pascal Siakam has an off night offensively, you don't know if you're going to have the production around him that steps up and can carry the load. Halliburton, as much as I love him, as much as I've praised him on this channel, it's too inconsistent for my liking that you want to see him be. We just want to be an 18 and 10 guy, a 20 and 10 guy. And occasionally, again, we want him to take over like he did in the playoffs last year. That's why they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. I just don't know if they have that boost this year. I don't know if they have that to repeat what they did last year going into this year's playoffs. That's why they continue to drop spots in my rankings. And then 15 is the Timberwolves. They just got Julius Randle back. And that's really it. That's all I could say about them. They're really a one-man band, and if they can make the playoffs, you can never count them out because Anthony Edwards has been one of the greatest player performers in NBA history, and I'm not even joking when I say that. When we move into the top 10 here, there's a lot of teams moving down, but we also have a team shooting up 12 spots to number 7. At 10's Milwaukee. You have your 2 top guys. You have figured it out how to work with this team. The question is the depth around those guys. Are you going to have enough in the playoffs, in these big time series? Again, the playoffs definitely help the Bucks because rotations get shortened in general. But can you find the consistent offensive production around Giannis and Dame? That's the biggest question. But if you can, you got the 2-star players that could take you over the top. And hey, even make a crazy run to the finals because you have 2 of those top guys. That's how much I believe in the Giannis and Dame as a duo. But can you get enough around them? That's the big question. Now for Memphis and Houston at 8 and 9, they have had great seasons. I just don't know whether it's because of their depth or their youth. I can see both these teams being first round exits, unfortunately, after their great seasons. Now, Memphis, I was high on this team before the year, but I wanted to see them make a move. That just didn't happen. So, for example, they're going to be the number 2 seed, and they're going to be playing a team that comes out to play in, obviously. Whether if it's the Warriors, which I don't think Memphis beats the Warriors in a 7-game series, or if it's a team like Dallas that has a healthy Anthony Davis, hopefully, I don't think Memphis beats Dallas. So I don't think Memphis has enough to make a deep run to be a legitimate contender down the stretch of the season. So for me, I think they're first round exits, unfortunately, despite how much I was hyping them up before the season. Houston, a lot of the same sentiment can be shared with them. I just think their youth will get in the way of them, but the mentality is there, the defense is there to keep them in pretty much any game. But I just don't think they have enough to beat a Warriors, to beat a Lakers, a Nuggets in the first round, and that's not really their fault. They're just in the wild, wild west. Now, at number 7, there has been no team that is more bipolar in my rankings this year than the Golden State Warriors. They started the year off in my preseason rankings in about middle of the pack. Then they had a tremendous start to the year. I moved them up into my top 5. Then they kind of plateaued and they started to fall and fall and fall. And they went down every single month after that. And now they're back in my top 7 because Jimmy Butler is now on the team. Of course, I recorded last month before the trade deadline. I think this will be the hottest team to close the year. I think they will make it out the play-in. I think they have the potential to be the top 6 seed. But if they do make it out the play-in, I like their chances a lot to come out of the first round. I think that honestly coming out of the play-in would be better for them to be on the road versus the Grizzlies compared to being the sixth seed and potentially have to playing the Lakers or the Nuggets in the first round. If I'm the Warriors, I'd actually rather go through the play-in and face Memphis over the other teams that I just mentioned. But I think they're going to be the hottest team going into the playoffs, and we know they have Steph Curry and a playoff Jimmy with the culture that they have there in Golden State. That flip could be switched, and it could be scary to see how great they can be when they eventually get hot here down the stretch. Now, the Knicks, they drop a couple spots. They're just too reliant on Jalen Brunson, and that's all that it is. Their defense is also not as great as we thought it would be. Bringing in, of course, Mikal Bridges and re-signing OG Anunoby, you thought this defense was going to be top five in the league. They're just not, and they're too reliant on Jalen Brunson offensively, where I think if Jalen Brunson has an off night, I don't know if this team is going to win multiple games here in the playoffs, especially against some of these top dogs like the Cavs and like Boston. That's why they're at number 6. But I still think if there's any team that's not on this slide right now, has the best chance to win the title, it's either Golden State or it's New York. Outside of that, I can't see any team outside of the 7 that I just mentioned that can really win it all this year. So the Knicks are still in the mix. I just want to see them hit their stride, which we thought wouldn't be a problem with the chemistry that some of these guys in their core already had before the, of course, additions. But let's get into the top 5 here, man. These are teams that I think can no doubt win a title this year. Whether if they finish as a play-in team, whether if they lose the rest of the games in the regular season, unless there is a major injury, I think these teams have the depth and the star talent to at least enough. We'll talk. Denver's a bit of an anomaly, but they have enough to win it all, and that's what I'm getting at here. And number 1's OKC, most complete team in basketball. They've been dominant on the road, at home. They're going to be the number 1 seed in the Wild Wild West, and boy, do they need it, because I think that they're going to need this home court when they're going to eventually be hosting teams like Denver, the Lakers, Golden State potentially. You're going to need the home court advantage, and that's really going to help them. The question is, though, are you too reliant on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Can he have potentially a 20-point game, and you can still win? That's the big question for OKC, but the defense is there, the offense, the potential is there. I'll say that. And number 2 is my Cleveland Cavaliers. We were last month, and this month we just solidified it. Despite Boston missing Drew Holiday and Kristaps, I don't think that's an excuse for blowing a 22-point lead in the first quarter to a team that's on the road in the Cleveland Cavaliers. So Boston, tremendous team. They just need to be healthy, and I think when they are healthy, it's hard to think any team can beat Boston in a 7-game series with Drew Holiday and Kristaps in the mix with their star players and their mentality. Now, number 4, man, it's just the 77 effect. Luka Doncic in LA with LeBron chasing his 5th ring, trying to cement himself as the greatest of all time. That's the impact that he has. He took a team that was in the middle of the pack, a team that we thought, okay, they'd be first-round exits again. Luka comes into the mix. They're championship contenders, and they've looked like it. LeBron, game-winning block last night against the Clippers. And this is a team that is number 2 in the Western Conference out of nowhere, seemingly. And that is the 77 effect. I think right now, if I had to put money on any team, I would put it on the Lakers to come out of the Western Conference. As crazy as that does sound, but there's just no match for a guy like Luka. The question, though, it's not the offense with this Lakers team. It's the defense. Can Luka and LeBron play? Can they show enough effort here in the playoffs? And can they be healthy enough to, I guess, keep up with teams like the Thunder in a 7-game series that like to get up and down? They like to go. They like to attack mismatches. Do Luka and LeBron have enough of the tank to not be, that big of a void on the defensive end of the floor? If they could be good enough, this Lakers team might actually make it out the Western Conference. And I didn't think I was going to say that before the season, but hey, I'd like to see it. I love Luka, love LeBron, and again, there's not many things I'd like to see other than LeBron getting his 5th ring. Of course, Cavs winning it all would be at the top of that list. And then number 5, you have Jokic. I mean, that's all I really need to say. His on-off numbers are insane. If you're looking at statistics, he is the MVP of the league this year. And there's not a question about it. He's going to win his 4th MVP this year, in my opinion. I think the Nuggets will finish as the 2nd or 3rd seed. The award might not go to him, but that's my vote. I'm giving it to Jokic. I don't care if it's going to be his 4th in 6 years. He deserves it. He's making everybody around him better. And every single night, we don't know what we're going to get around him. Jamal Murray might put up 8 points. We might get Michael Porter having a 2 point outing. We might have Aaron Gordon not even play. Same thing with Russell Westbrook. But Jokic is keeping his team at the top of the Western Conference despite not having consistent depth around him. He's amazing. He's one of the greatest players of all time. But that is my March power rankings. Let me know what you think in the comments. Who do I have too high, too low? Let me know, man. And again, it is my birthday. So if you made it to this point, you enjoyed a little bit. So drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and until tomorrow, have a good one.